first few months, they were shooting us down like crazy.
Really?
The Japanese out there at Pearl and so on, Guam, Saipan. And they were shooting down so many of our pilots, but that's the reason I was taken in at just barely 18. I enlisted because I said to my dad, and we were standing listening to Franklin Delano Roosevelt, my dad and I, on a Sunday morning, and Franklin FDR was saying, "We are now at war." And my dad said, "You and your two next older brothers will be going to war." And I said, "I don't want to just be walking the army. I want to fly." And so they sent me through over a year of flying.
Wow.
They started with a Piper Cub and built on up to Hellcats. I ended up in Hellcats because I wanted a fighter plane. I didn't want any multi-engine.
Yeah.
Just I wanted a fighter, and they let me do it.
Pretty young when you
I
decided to
graduated
go.
at 17, and I had to wait 3 months to get into Navy flying.
Yeah.
And that's what I wanted, and so I was lucky to get to do what I wanted to do.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I had to go to Iowa City. They put us through almost a year of training.
Mm-hmm.
And Iowa City, we were building our physiques up,
Yeah.
and they made us do everything. That's the only place I've ever been knocked out in my life. At the Iowa City, where they put us in training, full gear on, and it was July, and the temperature was about 100, and they said, "Oh, run around the oval of the at the stadium." And a lot of guys just passed out on the way around
Jeez.
because they couldn't handle it. And one time I was in Kansas learning to fly a plane,
Mm-hmm.
and I all of a sudden looked down at a road, and I had to land in this farmer's cornfield and turn it off, walk over to and you wore a parachute on your fanny every time you flew, and I walked over, I shut it down, walked over to a couple of farmers. I said, "I'm lost. Where am I?" They said, "Well, the Navy base is 20 miles west." They said, "You have a big wind that has taken you 20 miles from the base." I'm lucky I didn't break the legs off of the plane anyhow, told the farmers, I said, strong wind blew me 20 miles east, and I put the crank in and locked it tight and took off, and I didn't hit a chuck hole or something.
Lucky.
But they said, when I landed, they said, "You have been down someplace. There's weeds in your wheel structure." I said, "Yes, I was." And I walked with a gun on my shoulder for several hours. I don't know how many it was.
That's funny.
But
So was that for punishment? Did they
Yeah.
make you walk for punishment for?
yeah, well, they had too much into me. They thought they were putting, I don't remember how many thousands of dollars into us. We started with a Piper Cub, then a two-wing job that was open cockpits, and then after that we had an SNV, an SNJ. An SNJ was one of those that's all covered with on top, and it's covered up so that you can withstand the weather. After I checked out on Hellcats and all different planes, they had me flying nothing but a Hellcat, F6F Hellcat by Grumman, and I got orders, and we flew out to LA, and then I remember going in for shots before I was shipped overseas. And I got about 12 shots that morning and passed out on them because they gave you everything. And then I went to Pearl Harbor, stayed there. Pearl about 2 months, and then they sent me to Guam, and I caught a carrier in Guam because Guam had the biggest ship and plane fleet, and they could work on them.
Yeah.
And they had the biggest one of all. And I sat in Guam and Saipan, and in Guam I caught a carrier out, and it joined the fleet. Part of a 20 ship, 20 at least, and we went through a typhoon, and the whole Admiral Halsey was in charge of this fleet of ships. He said, "Oh, we're big ships. We can handle it." We lost 28 planes. We had them with cable that big tied down to the flight deck.
Jeez.
And we lost 28 of them, and we catapulted them, a lot of them, over the side.
Uh-oh.
And well, we took all the parts that we wanted, and put them in the deep.
Yeah.
And Halsey, Admiral Halsey, he was a smart son of a gun. And he thought we were invincible, but not so. I stood on the flight deck, which was 55 feet above water,
Yeah.
and I looked up the top of waves that high, so they had to be 100 feet wide in this big storm. And we also had an inclinometer on the ship. It pointed straight down, no matter if it would point straight down if it was bent out of line.
Wow.
So we had on our carrier, we could turn 30 degrees, and we did. And if you turned 31 degrees, it would probably tip and start going.
Oh wow.
So the pilots watched this inclinometer. We would have two elevators that came up, elevators
Bring the planes up to the deck.
from the hangar deck to the flight deck. And we had two decks, and they put everything down on the hangar deck. There was two hangar decks on the carrier.
Mm-hmm.
They had to have two because if you ever took a bomb to the carrier, you had to get the planes from the hangar deck.
Mm-hmm.
They fed the pilots really good.
Oh boy. That's awesome.
Yeah, they fed us all very, very much. You probably thought that we were away from the United States, but we heard all of the songs, the great songs that were being played in the United States. So we heard all of that.
Awesome.
We were aboard ship and flying off and on to flying on and off of carriers. We wore a zipped or buttoned up full suit.
Good picture.
This was my flight group. Here mine. I'm not sure any of them are like. This was our instructor. He was killed in a plane crash. So was he. This guy came back and he was on the East Coast and he was into night flying.
Wow.
And he went out one night, never returned.
Really?
He was down on the East Coast. He went out one night and never returned. We were doing recon on the Japanese because we thought we were going to have to invade Japan to get rid of them.
Yeah.
And so fortunately we didn't have to do that. They said they thought it would be over 200,000 losses of American lives to invade Japan.
Yeah.
Between 200 and 250,000. Okay. And our fleet was off of Kobe and Osaka and Nagoya. And we were off of the Japan. You could see Japan all over there. And we were, of course, with destroyers around our fleet.
Mm-hmm.
And we had to have destroyers to protect us.